UK government launches inquiry into the GRA reform proposals and consultation. This one has been up and down, as with the other one. The Women and Equalities Committee official Twitter handle posted a series of tweets, I believe it was 4 tweets, noting the facts that they are, asking for evidence as to proposals for changes to the Gender Recognition Act and other trans equality issues. And they're just putting out this general call out. You have to November the 27th, by the way, if you'd like to get involved. It is the first link at the top of this point in the document, which is attached down below. Those who don't know, all of our stuff is referenced, is linked. There's a document at the bottom of the show description, which just is titled Links and Notes. Go to that, you'll find all the different categories, and there you will be able to find this link. It's the very first one under this story. Go there, and if you want to give evidence, you can do so. Again, it closes on November the 27th. Now, when everyone saw this, there was massive uproar by trans voices. People were responding by saying, you know, we've been through this before. This is what the whole 2018 consultation was about. You know, we supplied the evidence, we were consulted. The overwhelming majority of people supported changes to the Gender Recognition Act. For those who don't know, the Gender Recognition Act is the act responsible for allowing a trans person to change the birth marker on their birth certificate. The gender marker on their birth certificate. So, you know, you can change it around. All this does is it allows them to then change it on specific government documents, such as pensions, tax forms, and marriage licenses. It does not have any impact whatsoever on a person's access to gendered spaces, such as bathrooms, domestic violence shelters, etc. That is protected under the 2010 Equalities Act, which does apply to those who have not undergone surgical procedures. It also applies to non-binary individuals, as was recently set as precedent. Right. But we still went through the whole reform, and the transphobes dragged everything out. They threw every tired trope at the sink. Stealing from the hate in America, they ran stories about how this is going to allow, you know, people to identify, you know, cis men to identify as women to gain access to young girls and vulnerable women and to do all sorts of things to them. This is the end of sex, you know, that's the whole definition thing started by Posey Parker. So they just threw everything at it, and it thrust the trans community directly into the spotlight in the UK and resulted in a massive increase in abuse in public spheres, and really the last few years have just been absolutely hell. Now, the consultation was done, and the vast majority of the British public supported GRA reforms, including the removal of the medicalisation behind the process. Because at current, what a person has to do, a trans person has to live as their gender for 2 years, which sounds simple enough. The problem is, what living as your gender entails depends significantly on your GP. If your GP is conservative and has rather toxic gendered expectations, if you're a trans woman who doesn't wear dresses, for example, or if you're a trans man who has long hair, that can result in you being rejected for a gender recognition certificate. So they were like, why are we medicalizing this purely legal process? It should just be a legal declaration, which is, you know, sworn statement. So if you lie about it, you face trouble, by the way. It should just be a legal process, you change it, and that's that. The majority of people in the UK consulted supported this. So the government completely ignored that, led by Liz Truss, and decided to reduce the amount, the cost for getting a gender recognition certificate. That was it. They completely ignored it. They just nullified the whole reason we suffered for years to try and get people to listen to us. All of that abuse that we received as a community, for nothing. So, when the same committee stated that they were doing an inquiry, people were very quick to say, this is just the same thing on repeat. That thankfully isn't the case. An inquiry is not a consultation. What's more is this inquiry is not led by the same team. It's also not led by Liz Truss. This is a trial-like process being carried out by the Women and Equality's Parliamentary Subcommittee, which is a cross-party committee of MPs headed by Caroline Noakes. It's not looking into whether, whether the GRA reform is supported. It's looking into the failures of Liz Truss and her team. It's effectively putting Liz Truss on trial. Now, there's a little concern. The person leading it is a conservative, so there's always the concern that they might go light on Liz Truss. But the thing is, this is not as open as a consultation. Every piece of evidence will go through extreme levels of scrutiny. It will then be presented in a trial-like process, which will be viewable publicly on Parliament TV. And the people involved will all be asked to come to the stand, they'll be grilled, etc. So hopefully, this will result in Liz Truss being dragged over the coals for her absolutely horrific handling of the GRA reform, the consultation, etc. Sadly, it's going to take a few years, but it's not the same process as before. That's the main thing. So it's really important to sort of take that away from here. This information was all compiled brilliantly by What the Trans, which is a UK-based transgender news podcast, by the way. You should definitely go check them out. Again, links are all in the notes and links article, so you'll be able to find that there. But I do want to note one thing. The very way that the trans community responded to this should be taken as evidence of just how much harm Liz Truss and her handling of the consultation caused. Because the very fact that an inquiry into the failures of the government was met with such hostility and apathy from the very community it's meant to serve shows just how much the trust in the government, just how much trust in the government has been broken for the trans community. That even when it's promising to investigate the people who have hurt us, we're still hesitant as to whether this is going to be a good thing. Because as this goes on, understandably, the news is going to pick up around it. Likely it's going to present this whole thing as like a McCarthy-style witch hunt of gender criticals in the British government. And we're probably in for another truckload of abuse, really. Yes.